What up, YouTube? Got another one for you today. On my last trip to Sand Hollow, looks like my power steering line started to leak. And when it started to leak, it leaked over this bushing and totally tore this bushing in half and made it really hard for me to maneuver on obstacles. I was in some pretty tight spots and I couldn't even move my wheels back and forth. I had to accelerate a little bit to kind of get it going, but either way, that's besides the point. We need to replace these lines. So these lines are connected to the top of the rack right here, 1 and 2. They run all the way across. This is the hard lines here. There's a bracket right on top here with a 12 millimeter bolt, and then there's one holding it to the frame. We'll go up to the top and show you from the top to the bottom. All right, so up top here we got our power steering pump with the 2 lines here. They're gonna go down towards the bottom. So again, here's your pump, 2 lines, and I don't know if you can see it, but your bracket's gonna be right here, and the bracket holding it to the frame is gonna be right here. Let's see if I can get some light in there for you. So yeah, there's that bracket, and the one holding it to the frame is right there. So let's get going on disconnecting this stuff. All right, so I'm on the driver's side of the vehicle. The truck is front is that way. So here's the connections to the steering rack for the hard lines. These are 17 millimeters, so you can get them off with a wrench. If you got a flare nut wrench, it's even better because you have less of a chance of stripping these, but one of these should be just fine. So let's get these off. Make sure you got a bucket underneath because it's gonna leak. All right, so while we got this line draining out, the way I'm gonna remember these lines different is this one has a fatter nut than the bottom one. That one's a little more flat. And then this one has a squiggly here like this, and this has a long squiggly. That might not seem important, but when you're gonna go to install these things, it's really important to put the right one where it goes. Not sure if you can see the O-rings there, the little black O-rings in there, but the kit that I bought actually has new O-rings, so we're gonna be replacing those. Lines are drained out, so we're going to move on to removing the bolt from the mount here, and then the one from the frame, and go up to the banjo bolt after that. Alright, so the bracket bolt is right here at the 12 mil, and then the other one is back here on the frame. That one, 12 mil. Alright, with the bracket bolts removed down there, we're going to move on to removing everything up here so we can finally disconnect the lines. So we're gonna have to remove this guy here, and we're also going to have to remove the sensor right here that connects to the banjo bolt. So I'm gonna disconnect these lines right here. This is a 17 millimeter to remove the sensor, and then I believe this is also a 17 millimeter. So let's go step by step. Let's start by removing this guy first. Have a drain bucket at the bottom so that when you're leaking fluid, it catches it all. Alright, so I realized that some of you would probably have the air box in the way right here, so you would probably have to disassemble your air box and remove it. But we pretty much got everything loosened up here. Got all these clamps off. Just gonna have to finagle this hose off here in a second. But this sensor, the connections to the sensor are easy to take off, but this sensor right here was pretty stuck for me, so just have some patience with it. You might want to loosen this one up before you go to the banjo bolt, because if not, I think you might not be able to get that off. But yeah, everything's off, so I'm gonna remove it, let the fluid leak out, and then compare it to the new set of hoses I have. Here we got everything disconnected. The banjo bolt, this hose actually was really bad. It was hard to get off. But I was mistaken. There was actually one more 12mm bolt right down here holding this line. So there's one to the frame on that side and there's one to the frame on this side. So now we're gonna get these hoses out of the way. All right, so I got this set of hoses from O'Reilly's. Napa, I think, sold them separately, and I think AutoZone also did. So this is the only set that came complete, and that part number is that right there. Also came with a new set of O-rings right there and crush washers for that banjo bolt. So everything looks pretty similar. Looks like it comes with new brackets, so I may or may not reuse the one that came from here. And I quite don't know where my line started leaking, but it looks like it could have been from here. Could be that the hard line had a hole in it or started deteriorating or whatever, but it's a good thing we're replacing it with some new lines. And so yeah, let's get going with replacing the new lines. All right, so I used some picks right here like this to line up those O-rings properly once they were flat. These lines are a lot harder to get in than I expected. So what I had to do is I had to remove the brackets and stuff that held them in place so I can move the lines around and then get these guys threaded in by hand. But once they got threaded in by hand, they had like a full stop, so now I can go back in and tighten them down with my wrench. But before I do that, I'm going to get the mounts on and get all the hoses lined up there as well, so that I can come back and tighten everything up properly. Okay, so the OEM banjo bolt comes with this little weird bracket thing, but our kit came with crush washers. So we're going to put banjo bolt, one crush washer, and then the fitting from the hose, and then the other crush washer. So here's our fitting. So we have our crush washer on our banjo bolt. We're going to put that in the fitting like so. I'm going to put the other crush washer at the bottom here. Trying to do this with one hand. And this has like a little placeholder or whatever, so we're gonna get that guy threaded by hand right there, and then our sensor is gonna go on this side. So righty tighty, homie. All right, so now that we got that line in place, we got this line in place, it's time to go back down and make sure the brackets are sitting properly and come back and torque this down. All right, so getting these lines to sit, it's kind of a pain in the ass, to be honest. So I had to actually remove all the brackets and pull them back so that I can get these two lines to sit properly. And once these were threaded in by hand, I just had them bottom out just by hand. Then I went back and reinstalled this mount right here. Now I'm gonna move on to that mount over there, but first I'm gonna just take a 17mm wrench and just snug these up, bottom out on that O-ring that's in there, and yeah. So yeah, just another note on routing these hoses. This hose that's on my right here had to go underneath the hard line and then over the hard line on the other side. The reason that I had a hard time kind of routing them again is just because, like I said, I disconnected the mounts to get the lines to sit properly. But you'll figure that out if you disconnect them yourself like that, because it's kind of hard to get them in together like that. But yeah, so that has to go underneath and then back in and around. So I'll show you it from the other side, but right now we're looking at it from here's the steering rack, here's that mount that's all, the bushing that's all jacked up, but that's the mount for the two hard lines, and then that first hard line underneath this way, the other one with the soft line underneath, and then back around. So I'll show you from the other side. So a little hard to tell, but that's the mount that we were just looking at down there. And if you follow these lines here, see if it'll focus. Yeah, so you follow those lines, there's the second mount. And then here, like I said, you have to route that soft line underneath that hard line to the right, underneath that mount for the engine. And then it comes back around this way to meet here, and then that other line comes this way all the way around so that it can meet here with the banjo bolt. Hopefully that makes sense, but again, it's kind of hard to say until you actually do it yourself and have to figure out the routing. All right, so we got this power steering line to the tank all snugged up. They got the banjo bolt all snugged up. That's about 34-35 foot-pounds. Just take note that the hard line right there, as you're tightening it down, might twist on you, so you might need to hold it so that it doesn't move that much. Got that sensor back on there. I think is 9 or 10 foot-pounds, but I just kind of snugged it up with my wrench. I used the threads on there were kind of dirty, so I just try to use it as a guide. Snugged it down so that all the clean threads are no longer showing, so kind of be in the same spot that it was in the past. And then once I got it bottomed down, or bottomed out, kind of give it like a 3/4 turn just to snug it up, about hand tight. So other than that, let's fill this guy up with fluid. Let's check the power steering lines, make sure that nothing's leaking. If you do have a leak, then you just need to snug up probably the connections to the steering rack, or check up here, see if you need to snug up this banjo bolt again. But let's give it a go. All right, so just took a nice long drive over to auto parts store, and our fittings here are pretty dry, which is a good sign. Got everything nice and hot. There's no leaks there. Our mounts, everything looks good here. Let's go up top. So our banjo bolt there looks pretty good, pretty dry. I had to pivot my power steering tank a little bit this way to keep this line away from the valve cover. But yeah, I filled it up. I had one that was one of these Prestone Toyota power steering fluid bottles left, and I had to go pick another one up. So it was about a bottle and a half that'll probably get you to full. This is the truck being hot, so it's at the max level. But yeah, other than that, that's how you change out your power steering lines. I'm pretty happy that it was not too bad. And now I'm moving on to that rack bushing that I need to replace. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out the Dirtbag Garage on Instagram, my own page, Dr_Omiz on Instagram, and like and subscribe if you like. Thank you.